Hi, in this section I'm going to be showing you how to puppeteer or teach people how to puppeteer a tabletop or direct manipulation puppet like this one. There will be a couple things I'll be doing. One is actually showing what the puppetry technique is, both how the puppeteers hold the puppet and also some very basic principles of puppetry. And the other is that once we've seen that, I'm going to start exploring the fact that this puppet is very unique. It's made out of a particular kind of material, newspaper and tape. It was made in a particular way. I made it intentionally very quickly. That means that there's things about it that aren't quite symmetrical, that don't move necessarily in a human-like way. And one approach that I and my company have is that can be the most interesting thing about puppets, actually, is the things that are unique, the things that seem like they might be problems with them. If they're explored, they can actually produce some of the most interesting ideas and work. So first, I'm going to just show how you get 3 puppeteers to hold a direct manipulation puppet. So if I could have Rory come out, and if you could just hold the feet right here. So you want to put your, just one finger. You want to keep kind of the visual noise of your hand off the puppet as much as possible. So if you can get a nice pinch there, then you still have good control with your finger and thumb, but you're not really holding around the puppet. Great. And now Polly, if you come out, and if you would hold the puppets, stand on this side and hold the puppet's bum with your right hand, and with your left hand, and hold the puppet's right arm with your right. And it's good to hold it right at the wrist so that you can move it like this. Again, avoiding visual noise. You just want that kind of pinch with but you do want a good grip. You want to make sure you feel like you really have it. Great. And then Matt, you come out. And Matt's going to be the head puppeteer, which means he's going to hold the back of the head. So it's important to have a back of the head that is easily gripped. If you don't, you can always add on something with lots of tape that's easy to grip. And with his other hand, he's going to hold this hand right at the wrist and with like a pinch, you might want to come under. Let's see if that works. See if does that feel comfortable for all of you? Great. So, you can start having the puppet look around. Just a little bit of movement, a little bit of walking. Great. Okay, and if the puppet could back up again. Okay, so 3 principles of puppetry. These are 3 basic principles. Obviously, puppetry is a very complicated art form, and it takes most puppeteers years to train in it. But a really good thing to teach beginners is these 3 basic principles, which every puppeteer constantly comes back to. The first is focus. Sometimes people call it gaze, sometimes people call it eyes, but I'll call it focus. And that is, where is the puppet appear to be looking? So you can see Matt's moving the head around and looking in very particular places. Even though the puppet doesn't have eyes actually created on its face. The other component of focus is the puppeteer's focus. So see, everybody's looking at the puppet. If you guys look up, kind of just look up around the room and keep trying to manipulate the puppet goes a bit out of focus for the audience. The audience is really tuned into where the puppeteers are looking. So if you guys could look back at the puppet, now the audience is going to notice that the puppeteer's eyes are going into the puppet and their gaze is going to come towards the puppet. So 2 parts of focus. One is where the puppet is looking. One is where the puppeteers are looking. They're always looking at the puppet. The second point, basic point of puppetry is fixed point. And that is the sense that the puppet has a sense of gravity, that it's responding to gravity in the way bodies on this planet tend to respond to gravity. So to demonstrate, if I could just step in for a second for Rory. Here's not fixed point. Okay. There isn't really a sense that the puppet has responding to gravity. Now, this is a flexible rule, because in a minute I'm going to show that one great thing about puppets is they don't have to obey the rules of gravity. But you do want a kind of a sense of where the puppet's spine is, and it's just not really there. So even if we did lift up the puppet to fly, we have the sense of spine here, and I'm helping keep that sense of spine with the legs. If I weren't, it could just be kind of just a bit loose and sloppy. So this idea of we all know where the fixed point is, whether we're in the air or on the ground. All right, so if I'm stepping in again and we're having 3 puppeteers, if I pull up here, that gives you, the puppeteer on the feet, a sense of tension to work with. So try walking now. So now there's this sense of tension and weight, right? Whereas if I let it kind of go down, it's a bit softer, isn't it? Yeah. So this puppeteer is holding the bum, pulling up, so there's this tension with the feet, helps give that sense of fixed point. Okay, and the third basic principle of puppetry, a very important one, is breath. And the reason breath is important is because there's, for a puppet to read as alive, as a living figure to the audience, it needs to have a sense of breathing, of having breath. But if we have the puppet stay still here, and it usually comes from the head puppeteer, the idea of the puppet's breath, so we could just see the puppet breathing with your breath. So you can see the puppet's still, but it has a sense, it's not frozen. Let's see the puppet frozen. Okay, that starts to look a bit like a statue. And now let's see the puppet with some breath. And one important thing, when I work with puppeteers, I really ask them to breathe as they're puppeteering. And I often ask them to see if they can open their mouths and breathe through their mouths. So if you guys could all open your mouths and breathe through your mouth. We start to get more of a sense, and then as the puppet, move the puppet around while breathing through your mouth. Start to get a sense of the puppet having breath. Also, the head puppeteer can use breath to indicate that the puppet's about to move, like on an in-breath. So if the puppet were about to move forward quickly. Yeah. Okay, great. Let's try that again. So if the puppet backs up, and then again, if we have a nice big, okay, now we're moving forward. Yeah. So with puppeteers working together, it takes some time to get this idea of complicité going. But the complicité where the puppeteers are in contact and can work with each other sort of organically often happens through breath. Now's the section of manipulating the puppet when I'm going to demonstrate a way that you can facilitate puppeteers just beginning to manipulate a puppet like this. And my approach focuses on the fact, that, as I mentioned earlier, that each puppet is very unique. They're made out of a very particular kind of material. They're made in a particular kind of way. If I had made a newspaper and tape puppet 5 minutes later, it would look and feel different to this one. Another person making a newspaper, tape, and puppet using the same technique that I taught, it would come out looking different. When I teach with groups of students, I give them about 20 to 30 minutes to make a puppet using that technique that I taught. And at the end, we have this variety of different creatures around the room. It's no two look even similar, which is really wonderful. And as I mentioned before, one approach that I have is that something that might seem like a problem with the puppet, like a stiff neck or asymmetrical arms or legs, or a joint just not moving or moving backwards instead of this way, or anything like that, which can very easily happen when making these kinds of puppets, especially with beginning puppeteers. Those are actually opportunities to discover something really interesting about the puppet and to create a puppet and its world that can be new and unique and really fascinating. So the way I facilitate is I ask the puppeteers to put their hands on the puppet, where they're going to. The puppet can either be lying down to begin with or standing up. I'll just show it from standing up. And I ask the puppet to come to life on a breath. So Matt, as the head puppeteer, is going to lead the breath. And it should be really obvious. There should be a, and now the puppet's alive. Okay, so we can see that again. So on a breath. Great, and all 3 puppeteers are breathing together, which is great. And now I'm going to address not the puppeteers, I'm going to address the puppet. And say, you puppet. I'm not going to name it, I'm going to ask it not to have a voice right now. I want it initially to just explore physically. So, hello, welcome. Can I see you just walk across the table there? Would that be all right? Okay, great, thank you. Okay, we're having some trouble with the puppeteers keeping up. So if you guys could, Rory, you could get in a bit closer to Matt and you can get in, yeah. And that's fine, we're gonna have some tangles, we're gonna have some traffic jams with the puppeteers. It's all part of learning how to do this kind of puppetry. One thing I want to also point out is that we have David sitting over here in the audience, and he chuckled a couple of times. It's really key to listen to vocal responses from the audience. They're often chuckles, laughs, or oh, or some kind of sympathetic vocal response, any kind of, or ooh, any kind of vocal response. What that says to me is that the puppet has come alive in that moment, and so you want to clock that you've done something that works for that puppet, that every puppet has something different that kind of really makes them go from this idea of an object to this idea of something living in the minds of the audience, and that's often expressed through these involuntary vocal responses. So those are really important things to listen for. I'm curious, your neck looks kind of interesting. I noticed earlier that when you walked forward, your neck went way back. Can I see your neck going way back? Oh, wow, you've got quite a, yeah, wow, that's kind of amazing and gorgeous in a way. Can you lose your attachment to the table a bit? I mean, look back and let whatever you're seeing up there pull you up. Oh, that's nice. There was something really nice. Yeah, it's when your head goes back, like it's in water. I was just thinking, yeah, this idea of this kind of swimming motion. So that's something you can do if you're working in a group setting, is ask for feedback, vocal responses, feedback from the audience. It's what are they noticing, what are they seeing? So this is how we start to develop what this puppet is and what world it's in. And it's a collective development. So you have a main facilitator talking to the puppet, asking questions, prompting it, and then you have the audience just noticing, being asked to vocalize. What are you seeing? What are you perceiving? And some things really start to work as you do that. And you know when it does because you get a big response. I'm not trying to say the puppet is a water creature, the puppet is an air creature, the puppet is a dog, the puppet is this. I'm trying to explore what I call the movement vocabulary of the puppet. What are all the different things it does? And through this process, a sense of who the puppet is, its movement vocabulary, and the world that it's in gets produced, and a piece can be created using this process, which starts with the puppet. It starts with the particular puppet. And in this case, the fact that I noticed when it was first walking across the table that its head moved back in kind of a strangely open way. So it's just noticing things and getting curious and asking questions. That's interesting. Now, one thing you'll notice when you lose the mask of the face, the front of the face, the puppet can cease to be alive. So in a performance, you don't want to do that for too long. And we might start to get a doubling of vision if we're reading this is the face and this is the face. But sometimes puppets can transform when they're in different shapes. And what if that were the face? That's something you can play with. It's a process of just taking a lot of time to play and explore. So you can take the hand back again. Okay, so you've been a very lovely shape-shifting puppet today. Great. Okay, and thank you. Oh, and okay, I just want to point this out. Keep puppeteering if this happens. Okay. So what happened was the torso came off the body. Now, can the puppet? So what is that? We can maybe have the legs lie down for now. And now, what is this? What's this? What kind of creature is this? And when it first came off the body, it went up in the air. Can I see it up in the air? Because see, there's this interesting little curl here. Can it move? Can the torso move at all? Like bend or move? Kind of like this almost seahorsey or something. Oh, it has this very nice flowy feel to it now. All right, so this is something that happens a lot. Is after a lot of manipulation, sometimes a puppet can fall apart or a limb can come off. And the instinct is to drop everything and say, oh, it's broken, but keep playing it. I've seen some of the most interesting work with students where, for example, a limb falls off and then they keep working with that. And it's created really beautiful pieces of theater. So this would be, again, part of this devising and development process is saying, oh, that's interesting, the legs came off, right? To keep the legs coming off in an actual performance, you would need to keep more tape on it, you could reinforce it. But in terms of exploration, what's that? It's wonderful just to go with it and not try to fix everything when you're exploring. So now look at this creature. I never would have imagined this creature when I first built that puppet. That's really beautiful. Some kind of antler fish creature. Monster rabbit. By going with what looks like mistakes and using them as discoveries about the puppet, a lot of really interesting material can be developed, as you can see, from very, very simple materials and without the need for a lot of expertise in puppetry. This can be done with beginning puppeteers. This has been a video about making and facilitating the puppeteering of a basic newspaper and tape puppet. As I said at the beginning, there's a lot of flexibility with how these puppets are made. I showed you the basic principles of creating all of the body parts, if we're going for a humanoid kind of puppet, creating joints. And then I talked about both 3-person and 2-person manipulation of these tabletop or direct manipulation puppets. And the main facilitation technique that I use and really encourage is to have a facilitator being really curious and asking the puppet questions and going with especially things that look like mistakes, things that look, oh, look, this neck goes weirdly far back, so let's play with that. The torso came off the legs, let's play with that. And inviting, being attuned to the vocal responses of the audience, because vocal response means that the puppet has done something that's really brought it alive. And also inviting whoever is watching in the audience to comment on what they're seeing, what they're noticing. That helps develop the puppet, develop the material. And that is what I would describe as a puppet-led approach to puppetry devising. Thank you.